Good day, students. Once again, this is Sir Dardar and welcome to our second lecture video for oral communication. For this video, we are going to talk about two things. First, we are going to discuss the barriers of communication, and then we are going to proceed to intercultural communication. Now, to start things off, here are the objectives for today's lesson. First, we are going to identify the different types of communication barriers. We are going to emphasize on the importance of intercultural communication. And lastly, we will identify ways of overcoming communication barriers. Now, to begin the discussion, let's answer the most basic question. What are the types of communication barriers? Now, when talking about communication barriers, there are actually two. Okay? The first one being internal, and the second one is the external barrier. Now, internal barriers are barriers that are intrinsic in nature. And by intrinsic, we mean that they occur within the person. Now, to give you certain examples of internal barriers, these are personal biases or selective listening. This can also be the emotional state of your audience and the poor listening motivation of your listeners as well. Now, moving on to external barriers, these are the barriers which are extrinsic in nature, which means they occur outside the person. And these are factors that can be found in the direct environment of either the speaker or the listener. Some of these factors or some of these external barriers may include the following: surrounding noise, such as loud music, noisy crowds, or even a noisy classroom can also be one perfect example of surrounding noise. And we also have external distractions. Sometimes when you listen to your teachers and your classmates keep on getting your attention, you are unable to focus on what your teachers are saying because your classmates are giving off external distractions. Okay, the next question now is, how do we overcome these barriers? How do we make sure that we are on point in terms of engaging ourselves in the communicative process? There are 9 suggestions, and we begin with the first 5. One would be active listening. Second would be through non-verbal communication, the ability to send out messages not only with the use of words but also with body gestures or facial expressions. Third, we can also enhance the communicative process by asking questions, by probing and by clarifying on certain points which are not yet clear to the listeners. Fourth, you also have to be clear. In a way, it could be said that one should avoid beating around the bush and just getting straight to the point. Number 5, it also helps if a speaker would summarize his or her points. That way, we can recapitulate and sum up whatever was discussed in the conversation. Furthermore, we can also try empathizing, and by empathizing, we place ourselves in the shoes of other people. And I think that empathizing is also very important because it helps us to project or to think of what kind of audience we are going to have during the communication process. Number 7 is establishing rapport. When you have a certain connection to your audience, it helps a lot in enhancing the quality of the speech because in a way, it can assure you that there is a possibility for a healthy engagement between the speaker and the listeners during their communication or their communicative opportunity. Number 8 is to be present. And by being present, we don't just mean the physical presence, but to command a certain type of stage presence is very important. It is vital that a speaker is able to fix the attention of the audience to himself or herself. That way, the attention or the focus of your audience is solely on you, and external distractions may be disregarded because your command of the stage is very, very strong. And last but definitely not the least, as listeners, it also helps if we provide feedback. And again, feedback does not only come in the form of a reply or a response, but also in actions such as nodding or through clapping of the hands. Okay, now with that being said, um, even if we are able to think of these strategies in overcoming communication barriers, over time we have struggled in overcoming one specific barrier, and that is culture. We have not yet bridged the cultural gap that exists between and among nations of the world. And in today's time, when the rise of the internet and and social media platforms have sprouted, okay, almost overnight, they have made the world a smaller place. We are now able to communicate with people on the other side of the globe, and with that development, I think that because of our ability to talk to people from other parts of the world, we have to be extra careful with the words that we say and the terms that we use, because it might not be received very well by people coming from other racial or cultural backgrounds. Now, why is that so? Why do we have to be careful with what we say or how we say it? Well, because a person's language and a person's culture are intertwined. And if we are not careful with the things that we say, it might have a negative effect on the person based on his cultural background. Therefore, we cannot take language and culture as separate entities. Instead, we must learn to respect both. Okay. So, when talking about culture, it does not only pertain to race or the color of your skin. No. A person's culture can also pertain to the different social groups that we find in society. Even in one community, there can be different cultures composing that community, and with the difference of social groups, okay, with these differences and with this type of variety, the different ideologies will also come into play. And because we have different ideologies, again, we must be very careful with the words and the terms that we use, because it might have negative effects on the people receiving your message. As the saying goes, no man is an island, and our ability to be very discreet and our ability to self-check the terms, the actions that we say and do when communicating with other people, that ability is very crucial, because we cannot remain isolated and we cannot remain as individuals. At certain time will come when we are asked to interact with other people, and as such, we have to tap into that ability to self-check and to reflect whether what we are saying and what we are doing while we are saying it are not offensive to people of different cultural backgrounds. So, respect and discretion are key. And with that being discussed, I think that's the end of this lecture video. Summing up the points discussed, we talked about the different types of communication barriers. We exemplified those types of communication barriers, and we have also talked about the different ways in overcoming communicative barriers. And lastly, we tapped into intercultural communication and why it is important to observe the proper way of communicating with people from other cultures. And before we end this video, I think this lesson's takeaway, or today's takeaway, is very simple. Because the world is indeed a smaller place, because we are now able to talk to other people from other parts of the world, I think it is time that we consider building bridges and not walls. Let us try to connect with people from other backgrounds who have different ideologies, different linguistic backgrounds, and not try to isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. Okay, so that completes our lecture video. Again, this is Sir Dardar wishing everyone a great day ahead. Class dismissed.